Now, there's a definite back-to-school feel for everyone this week, from pupils to parliamentarians, and we've heard from one Leicester mum already this morning, very keen to watch what happens later today as the House of Lords discusses a subject very close to her heart. Emma Friedmann was taking valproate during pregnancy over 20 years ago, but it's believed to have caused serious problems for her son, who developed autism, hearing and sight problems. She's taken part in a review in the use of that drug, which she hopes will be influenced and it will influence the Medicines and Medicines Device Bill being discussed, as I say, later today.
I have epilepsy and I've had to take medication since I was a child to control my seizures. And in the mid-90s, I met my son's father. We decided to have a family, so I went to the neurologist, said, is this medication going to be okay for me during pregnancy? Neurologist had no concerns or whatever, so we had our son, and he's now 21, nearly 22. He's got severe neurodevelopmental birth defects. He's never going to live independently. And it turns out that there's a 40% risk of neurodevelopmental birth defects with this drug, valproate, Epilim. And it's been the subject of government commissioned review by Baroness Cumberledge. And also we've managed to get it banned for use in females with childbearing potential right across the EU.
Emma campaigned for years about this drug. Caroline Trevithick is from the clinical commissioning groups for our area. Morning, Caroline.
Good morning, Jimmy.
Morning. Now, you've had a chat with Emma, haven't you? Do you understand her concerns about this drug?
Absolutely. Emma's spent a lot of time over the last few years speaking to medicines optimisation teams in the CCGs to bring our awareness of the campaigning that she's been doing, really to the heart of what we're doing.
Isn't it ultimately, though, the job of CCGs to make sure all medical staff know about the risks of prescription drugs?
So it's a little bit more complex than that. There's a responsibility for all clinicians, and as a clinician myself, it's my responsibility to ensure that I'm up to date with all of the alerts and all of the changes to medications. The CCG's responsibility is to make sure that trusts have processes in place to respond to alerts. So the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency issue on a monthly basis, on a regular basis, alerts associated with medicines and medical devices. And we need to ensure that the trust has got a process in place for responding to those, not just responding straight away, but auditing that departments are implementing those changes. There's also a responsibility for the CCGs to ensure that trusts have got those processes in place to keep clinicians up to date, so such as training and clinical supervision. And we wrap that up in a term called clinical governance, so that's a good clinical governance process for trust.
Do you feel you're doing enough, Caroline?
I think it's the reports, the Cumberledge report always demonstrates that we always need to keep learning and we need to keep responding to alerts wherever they come from. And some of the things that we're trying to do is work with our local population to hear their experiences of care. We know through the Cumberledge report that patients weren't always listened to, and we want to make sure that that doesn't happen. We know that the response for individuals is that their first port of contact should be their clinician who's caring for them if they've got a concern with any medication. But we put in place other mechanisms to do that. So trusts have patient involvement centres where people can contact, and the CCGs have got inquiry lines. But we've also set up a citizens panel where we're trying to engage with a large number of our local population to understand their experiences of care. And this will make us much more aware of what's happening on that more anecdotal level, but really start to build up our knowledge of how people are experiencing care locally.
Caroline, how often do we see advice changing about drugs?
As I say, we get alerts come through monthly. They can come through on medicines, they can come through on clinical devices. There's information in medical journals and all sorts of places. So there's a whole range of places where clinicians and trusts and ourselves need to be aware of changes to clinical practice.
If people have concerns about a prescription drug they're on, what should they do, Caroline?
So I would always say the first point of contact is the clinician caring for them. They're the ones that understand what the medication is used for. But if people are concerned, there are places such as patient involvement centres in trusts or our inquiries line through the CCG website.
Caroline Trevethick, thank you very much for joining us on BBC Radio Leicester from the clinical commissioning groups for our area. Valproate manufacturer Sanofi and the UK medicines watchdog, the MHRA, have previously told the BBC, despite being an effective drug, Valproate is only meant to be prescribed to women of childbearing age as a last resort, and its use is kept under constant review, and as new data has become available, the warnings have been updated. So what Emma Friedmann and fellow people have been campaigning about today is going to be discussed in the House of Lords, and we think it's going to be around lunchtime. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of there this afternoon. It's 13 minutes past 8 now.
Breakfast with Jimmy Carpenter.